If you happen to have missed the first 3 races of the season and were to look at the constructors' standings, McLaren being in 5th place probably wouldn't be a huge surprise, or lead you to question where things went wrong for a team that's been fighting in and around the front of F1's midfield for the past few seasons. But in reality, a very flattering result in Australia thanks to the Alpine collision, the Sainz penalty and the Leclerc DNF is currently masking what has been a very difficult start to the season for McLaren. This is a team who recently let go of their executive technical director for failing to deliver, and Lando Norris says that sometimes you have to be a bit more cold-hearted when it comes to big decisions on the future of the team. He clearly has a lot of faith in those at the top of the structure to make the right calls, but is that trust misplaced? The first 2 races of the season were a complete disaster for McLaren. Bahrain saw a DNF for Piastri on his F1 debut, and Lando finishing last of the classified drivers, and Jeddah produced a very disappointing 15th and 17th placed finishes. This result in Saudi Arabia was seemingly the final straw for CEO Zak Brown, who announced the departure of Executive Technical Director James Key just a few days later, stating that it was clear for some time that change was needed. It's no secret that McLaren had expected to be starting the season on the back foot. There had been a realization months before the first race in Bahrain that the initial aero concept on the MCL 60, developed under Key's leadership, wasn't going to be a successful one, hence why a large upgrade package was already in the works for Azerbaijan before testing had even begun. It's worth looking at James Key's time in Formula One to put all of this into context. His first senior role came in 2005 as technical director of Midland, previously Jordan Grand Prix. He remained in this role as the team transitioned into Force India, then left for Sauber in 2010 before joining Toro Rosso in 2012. It would perhaps be unfair to label his career up to the switch to McLaren as a failure, but he never oversaw drastic improvements like the one we've seen this season at Aston Martin thanks to Dan Fallows. His stint at McLaren was undoubtedly his most successful, being a key part of taking McLaren from a disastrous 9th place in the Constructors in 2017 to the heady heights of the 3rd best team on the grid during a Covid-riddled 2020 season. But it's clear that, for McLaren, what goes up must come down, dropping to 4th in 2021, then 5th in 2022. Key was overseeing a car going into the 2023 season that wasn't showing improvements or showcasing any kind of clearer understanding of the recent regulation changes. And the big problem for McLaren is that virtually every other team on the grid has. The gap from McLaren to the teams behind has been closed considerably, and the leapfrogging we've seen from Aston Martin makes McLaren's position look even worse. So to Lando Norris. There's very little doubt from anyone who has seen him race that he's an incredible talent, touted by many to be a future Formula One world champion. He displays incredible versatility and adaptability, outdrives and outperforms the fairly disappointing cars he is given, and completely trounced his 8-time race-winning teammate in 2022. He's keen to point out that he's just a driver when asked about the current situation at McLaren and the departure of James Key, but it would be pretty safe to assume that he can't be happy with the direction the team has been heading in. He echoed Zak Brown's sentiments, stating that it's clear change needed to be made. And Brown is clearly a man Lando has a great deal of faith in. Perhaps it's loyalty, due to the opportunity Zak gave Lando, or perhaps Norris genuinely does believe that Zak Brown is the man to take McLaren to a position where they can be fighting for a world championship again. But from an outsider's perspective, it's hard to be as optimistic as Lando claims to be. Zak Brown is clearly a man who is passionate about Formula One and motorsport, and there's no doubt he's willing to make potentially unpopular decisions for the good of the team. But when the future of one of the most talented drivers on the grid is in the equation, you have to look at his performance through a critical lens. If the dismissal of James Key had needed to happen for a while, like Brown claims, then why didn't it? And how have you ended up bringing a car to testing which you've known for months wouldn't be good enough? McLaren claimed that this failure was due to being caught out by the change to floor height rules, but every other team seems to have been able to adjust to them just fine. Whilst Andreas Seidel's move to Alfa Romeo or Sauber would have been heavily influenced by that team's 2026 future with Audi, was it also an indication in a lack of trust in Brown's leadership and the direction in which the team was heading? The restructuring McLaren has been through recently has seen Andrea Stella, somebody who Lando claims to have more faith in than he did Seidel, promoted from Executive Director of Racing to the role of Team Principal. There has also been a promotion for Peter Prodromou, who is now the Technical Director with a focus on aerodynamics. Stella and Prodromou have been part of the team since 2014 and 2015 respectively, and have yet to make the sort of clear impact we've seen from the likes of Dan Fallows at Aston Martin. These seem like safe promotions, as opposed to ambitious outside hires. hires, though the impending return of David Sanchez from Ferrari at least fits that second category, someone who deserves credit for significantly contributing to Ferrari's fast start under F1's new rules in 2022. Whilst Lando, outwardly, is showing a lot of faith in McLaren to get back to the heady heights of their glory days, we have to wonder whether Seidel's departure in particular points to much bigger problems for McLaren than just leadership structure or infrastructure. To succeed in Formula One, you need your machine to be as well-oiled as possible. Just look at Red Bull, for example. The McLaren team of 2023 seems more akin to the situation Ferrari find themselves in. You can change who's at the top, taking the blame, but often the problems run much deeper than that. Remember to like and subscribe for more Formula One content.